Hi, I'm Marie Hopkinson and welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Today we're going to be answering a subscriber's question about hiatus hernia and how does that relate to Chinese medicine? What does it mean in a Chinese medicine sense? So I think they specifically asked, does it relate to the spleen? And so it does relate to the stomach, that's its physical organ, and it does also relate to the spleen, and we're going to talk about how that works in a moment. So firstly, just to review hiatus hernia for a moment, your stomach is basically a bag. So your digestive tract is one big long tube, right, that goes from your mouth all the way down to your esophagus and then your stomach, and then that tube just changes shape and changes form to become your small intestine, your large intestine, and then for the food to go out. So essentially it is one big long tube, and so in one sense your digestive organs are all the food organs, and the function to be able to do their digestion sometimes is considered the spleen or the earth element's function of the digestive power, if you like, even though the spleen isn't actually part of that tube. It's the stomach that's the part of that tube that's related to the earth. So in hiatus hernia, what happens is there can be a weakness in the muscle, the diaphragm muscle, and a part of the esophagus can actually poke through. So a hernia, let's say on your abdomen, a hernia would be your rectus abdominis muscle would be like that, and that would become weak, and then through pressure, let's say when you do a sit-up, a bit of the intestine may pop through. That's a hernia. So a hiatus hernia is where a little bit of the esophagus, which is the portion of your digestive tract that's just before your stomach, kind of is popping through there. So one thing we have to consider about hiatus hernia is it wouldn't happen if there wasn't that weakness in the muscle wall. If the muscle wall was thick enough or strong enough, let's say, why has that muscle wall become weaker? And that is a spleen function, right? Now the stomach itself, and really you could say the esophagus is really part of the stomach. It's certainly more the domain of the stomach in terms of things like it's the thing that's affected by reflux, and that would be generally considered like more of a stomach symptom, certainly from a TCM perspective. But it's all the earth element, right? So you have your 5 elements in Chinese medicine. So how a practitioner might treat that would be to look at, one, if there's an earth imbalance there, what is causing that earth imbalance? So is there something else within the 5 phases or the 5 elements that's causing the earth not to be strong enough? So in terms of the earth not to be strong enough, causing the muscle to be weakness, and that's the spleen. So there could be a spleen qi deficiency pattern there, or some kind of dampness. Now it's actually also related in a Western medicine sense. It's an associated condition, or it's more prevalent in people who are overweight, which it relates to that spleen qi deficiency as well. So when you're overweight, either you got overweight because you're eating all these foods that aren't helping the spleen, that are overwhelming the spleen ultimately, or you got there and then you maybe still eat, maybe some not so great foods, but you generally have a healthier diet, but you can't lose the weight because the spleen's so weak. It's the spleen fire, or the digestive system is, the yang of your digestion is just, too weak to help you mobilize it. And there can be all kinds of complicated issues in that. But what I'm getting at is commonly associated with spleen qi deficiency because of that muscle issue. So in Chinese medicine, the spleen is said to control the muscles and the 4 limbs. So what that means is the strength of the muscles. So when people say, oh, I feel really tired, but I'm we call it lethargy, where they just feel like I want to lie down because my muscles are heavy. Not so much because I need to have a sleep, but because I just feel heavy and I want to rest my limbs. Well, that's a spleen qi deficiency, maybe dampness in the spleen kind of a symptom. So heaviness particularly is a damp sort of situation. Now, often with hiatus hernia, one of the symptoms people get is reflux. So a burning pain, like a feeling in their epigastric area or in their chest. Some people get reflux that's so severe that they feel like a burning pain in their chest. Now, if you ever have any chest symptoms and you're not sure what it is, you should always get it checked by Western medicine first. Don't assume that it's esophageal reflux or something like that, because there could be lots of problems. But that's why that problem is colloquially termed heartburn, because it feels like it's in your heart. It feels like, it's associated with that feeling like your heart is burning, but there's nothing wrong with your physical heart. So you only really know that by going to Western medicine. So as always, please don't use YouTube as a replacement for medicine. If you find yourself here and you think, oh, I've got chest pain, go to the hospital or the doctor. Don't delay, immediately call an ambulance if you're unsure and you have chest pain, you don't know what that diagnosis is. Or especially if you have something new and you haven't had it before, it's good to have that stuff checked out. But so usually with this, you wouldn't have any heart symptoms like radiating pain down the arm or anything like that. And it's not so much like a tightness in the chest, but it's a feeling like in your chest you have a sensation, or just under the ribs is right in the middle is what we call the epigastric area, and often there's like a tight or a painful feeling there. And sometimes it even really hurts to kind of be pressed on there. So if you've ever been palpated with diagnostic purposes, like sometimes Chinese medicine practitioners will touch your abdomen, or if you've done shiatsu massage, for instance, that area would be, I think they consider that the hara area. That would be, the hara is the whole abdomen, but I think that top part, that epigastric part, if that's really sensitive, that's often a symptom of like an excess condition in the stomach area, in a Chinese medicine sense. So this isn't a long video, it's just a little answer to that question. So that's how hiatus hernia would be related in Chinese medicine. How we got to that point of having the spleen deficient, or the earth being either invaded. Let's say you can have a pattern of disharmony called wood invading metal, which is very common in people that get very stressed, stagnant, annoyed, vexed, angry, that kind of thing. And their wood energy kind of like invades, or it should, for the 5 phases, or the 5 elements, they say wood should control the earth. But in this situation, it's not controlling, it's getting angry on the earth, it's getting upset at the earth, and it's what's called invading the earth. So that would be a common pattern of disharmony to sort of have a diagnosis for people that get like pain from stress. Like they say, oh, every time I get stressed, the pain comes on. Or, if I have a period where I have a lot of stress and I'm under a lot of pressure and my diet's not so good, and then, these symptoms kind of are worse. Lots of these conditions, people have to manage them. Like you'd have to go to a Western medicine doctor to have that diagnosis for a start, because they'll give you either like an endoscopy or a barium, an x-ray with what they call like a barium meal. So you eat this stuff that shows up on an x-ray, and they can then see the shape of the stomach because it's all outlined really clearly. And that's generally how they make the diagnosis. So you can't really diagnose it just from the symptoms, otherwise we don't know that what the stomach is actually doing. But quite often there's not surgery that's used, it's just a matter of managing those symptoms. And if a person loses weight, it often will happen less. And so that would also help their spleen in Chinese medicine. It would be really up to your acupuncturist or your Chinese herbalist to make the individual diagnosis as to what kind of led up to that, what pattern of disharmony that you happen to have that's led up to that hiatus hernia, in order to work the treatment out. So like what I'm getting at is different points would be used, or different herbal formulas would be used based on whether it was wood invading earth or just a weakness of earth. You can have issues with the lung and earth, and different kinds of things like that. And that would be all diagnosed from your pulse diagnosis and the symptoms that you've got, and those kinds of things, and probably your tongue in some cases as well. So I hope this video has been useful and helpful to you. If you're not a subscriber already on the channel, make sure you click that subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. And if you've got a question about Chinese medicine, feel free to put it in and I'll attempt to answer it. So have a great day, and I'll see you again soon on the next video.